Hi, Algebra 2. We are getting ready to look at a new type of function. I know you know what these vertical lines mean around a number. Absolute value, correct? It means how far is a number from zero. Well, let's look at if we would graph y equals the absolute value of x. Okay, let's see what kind of graph that would make. Now, when I am faced with a graph that I'm unsure about, I just start sticking numbers in for x, doing what the function tells me to do, find the y-coordinate, and then plot points and hope I see a pattern. I usually start with 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. I put in some positives. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value of 2 is 2. Absolute value of 3 is 3. And then I put in some negatives. Absolute value of -1 is also +1. Okay, the absolute value makes the number non-negative. Absolute value of -2 is 2. Absolute value of -3 is 3. And then I just plot these points and see if I notice any type of pattern. So I'll plot 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. I know it's going to be 4, 4, 5. I can see what's happening here. It's like I'm going to have a line. Let's see what happens with -1. Oh, wait, -1 is +1. -2 is +2. -3 is +3. I don't get a line. I get a V. If I could draw straight, hopefully you make a nicer graph. Okay, this, guys, is what the absolute value of x looks like. It's a V. Think about what y equals x looks like. That would be a line continuing down here, right? That's y equals x. But in absolute value, we don't have any negative y terms, okay? So all these get kind of flipped up to the positive, and you end up getting a V shape. That's what the absolute value of x looks like, okay? We call that the parent graph, okay? And now what we're going to do is add and subtract numbers to the absolute value, add and subtract numbers inside the absolute value, and see how that moves the V around. But in general, just y equals absolute value of x. We'll refer to this as the parent function, okay, with nothing added or subtracted to it. But let's take, okay, I know what y equals absolute value of x looks like. I've already graphed that. Okay, it's a V. So let's just I'll try to make this better. Okay, it's a nice V shape. That's my absolute value of x, right? Well, now I'd like to take the absolute value of x and add 3 and see what that does to my graph. So I'll come over here again. When I don't know, I just pick x's and start plugging it in. If I put 0 in for x, absolute value of 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. If I put 1 in for x, absolute value of 1 is 1, plus 3 is 4. If I put 2 in for x, absolute value of 2 is 2, plus 3 is 5. So 0 gives me 3, 1 gives me 4, 2 gives me 5. When I put -1 in, the absolute value of -1 is +1. +1 plus 3 is 4. So -1 gives me 4. When I put -2 in, the absolute value of -2 is +2. +2 plus 3 is 5. So -2 gives me 5. I see that I'm going to have a V. It's just going to be shifted, isn't it? It's shifted up 1, 2, 3 units. Makes sense, huh? How about, just think, what do you think -3 is going to do? I bet you're right. We put 0 in, absolute value of 0 is 0, subtract 3, I get -3. Shift down here a little bit. 1, 2, 3. I put 1 in, absolute value of 1 is 1, -3 is -2. I put 2 in, absolute value of 2 is 2, minus 3 is -1. I put 3 in. Absolute value of 3 is 3 minus 3 is 0. I can see what's happening here. And when I put -1 in, of course, I end up getting -2 because the absolute value of -1 is 1. Subtracting 3 gives me -2, etc. Okay, it's a V, just like this was, but it shifted down 3. That's what the -3 did. Okay, and in general, that's what will happen, guys. If I have y equals absolute value of x plus something, I'm just going to use the letter K, all right, plus something, that's going to shift my V straight up the y-axis. Or if it's a minus K, it'll shift it down. Okay, that's what this number does, added or subtracted to the absolute value. Let's see what happens if we take our V, same V, y equals absolute value of x. I know what that looks like. It's a V. Okay, but y equals absolute value of x plus 3. In other words, I'm not taking the absolute value until after I add 3. What does that do? Let's see. If I put 0 in, 0 plus 3 is 3. Absolute value of that is 3. If I put 1 in, 1 plus 3 is 4. Absolute value of that is 4. If I put -1 in, -1 plus 3 is what? 2. Absolute value of 2 is 2. If I put -2 in, -2 plus 3 is -1, but the absolute value of that is +1. -3 plus 3 is 0. Absolute value of that's 0. -4 plus 3 is -1, but the absolute value of that will give me a +1. So 0 gives me 3, 1 gives me 4, -1 gives me 2, -2 gives me 1, -3 gave me 0, -4 I'm back up to 1. -5, what would happen? -5 plus 3 is -2, but then the absolute value of that is 2. Do you see where the V is happening now? Adding 3 inside the absolute value shifted it to the left 3. With that plus there, I kind of thought it was going to shift it to the right, but it actually shifted it to the left, the opposite of what you might intuitively think. But one thing that helps me is I think about what's going to give me 0 inside. A -3 plus 3 is going to give me 0. So that shifts me from my 0 to the -3. Now, what do you think the -3 is going to do over here? I know this is messy. I'm going to erase this. What do you think the -3 is going to do? Well, let's just stick numbers in instead of guessing. Okay, let's put 1 in. 1 minus 3 is -2. Absolute value, that's 2. 2. 2 minus 3 is -1. Absolute value, that's 1. 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. Absolute value, that's 0. 4 minus 3 is 1. Absolute value, that's 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. Absolute value, that's 2. I'm starting to see some repeated y's. Let's just check this out. 1 gave me 2. 2 gave me 1. 3 gave me 0. 4 gave me 1. And 5 gave me 2. I see the V. And we're right. It was shifted to the right 2. Subtracting 3 shifted it to the right 3. Might have think when subtraction, I kind of think left, but no, it went to the right. So inside the parentheses, we have to be careful. We can't just think automatically, oh, it's going to go to the right or left. Think about it. You know it's going to go to the right or left, but if it's minus, it actually goes to the right, because what's going to make this 0 inside the absolute value will be a +3, right? So I'm going to be shifted over 3 to the right. Okay, so that's what's going to happen if I have absolute value of x minus some number, let's say h. Then that's going to shift it to the right by h units. If I have absolute value of x plus h, then that's going to shift me to the left All right. So in general, we use this form and we say the vertex or the spot where the V is going to happen, okay? That we kind of call that the vertex. That is going to happen at the point H comma K. All right, that the X coordinate will be H and the Y coordinate will be K. So for example, if I have the absolute value of X minus 2 plus 3, I know that my vertex is going to be at 2, 3. Okay? And I might put a couple points in just to make sure. Maybe I'll put some things around 2, like let's just put 0 in. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. Plus 3 is 5. Let's put something on the other side of 2. Maybe we'll put 4 in. 4 minus 2 is 2. Absolute value 2 is 2. Plus 3 is 5. You know, you can just verify, okay, yes, I have a V happening at the vertex of 2, 3. This moved it to the right 2 and up 3. Okay? If I had something like absolute value of X plus 4 plus 2, that's not going to move it to the right 4. This is going to move it to the left 4 and up 2. So my vertex is going to be at negative 4, 2. Okay, 1, 2, 3, negative 4, 2. Here's where this V is going to happen. If I'm not sure, I don't trust myself, I might put some things around negative 4 in. Maybe I'll put negative 5 in. Negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. Absolute value of negative 1 is positive 1. Plus 2 is 3. So negative 5 gives me 3. And then something on this side, maybe I'll put negative 3 in. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Plus 2 is 3. I see the V now. Yes, it's a V that was shifted to the vertex of negative 4, 2. Okay, and remember, if this would have been minus 2, then I would have been shifted down 2. Okay? Let's see what happens if I multiply a number to the outside. I know what Y equals absolute value of X looks like again. We're getting good at that. Whoops, except I'm not getting good at drawing. Okay, we have our V. 2 times absolute value of X. Well, let's see. Still, I'm at 0, 0. But 1, absolute value of 1 is 1 times 2 is 2. Negative 1, absolute value of negative 1 is 1 times 2 is 2. 2 gives me 4. Negative 2 also gives me 4. I still have a V, okay, but it's a little bit skinnier. Okay, it's a skinny V. If I multiply by negative 2, I'm taking a negative times a positive. The absolute value is always positive, right? So I'm still at 0, 0. But when I put 1 in, I actually get negative 2. When I put negative 1, absolute value of negative 1 is positive 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. I end up with a V that's upside down and skinny. Okay, this negative flipped it upside down. And then if I have a half, you can kind of guess what's going to happen there. Of course, I still start at 0, 0. But if I put in, let's say 4, absolute value of 4 is 4. Half of that's 2. And the same with negative 4. I take the absolute value of it first, giving me 4. And half of 4 is 2. So negative 4. Okay, I get like a wider V. Okay. So the number in front will tell you kind of if it's bigger than 1, it's going to give you a skinny V. If it's between a fraction between 0 and 1, it gives you a wider V. And if it's a negative number, it flips you upside down. Okay? Try graphing this last one yet. Yeah, I knew the vertex is at 1, 3, and it's upside down and skinny, but I did put a couple points in and get the rest. Okay?